Good evening, everybody. Shalom to the people of the Kingdom of Heaven, and hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Proven Black America. I posted something up. I deleted it earlier. It was actually from my my personal like page. I was moving too fast at work. It was talking about what a bond servant was. For us, that's in Deuteronomy chapter 16. And chapter 15. But the thing I was wanting to address tonight, I'm going to call this flipping the buck. A bond servant is basically where they got the term indentured servitude from in the Bible. Remember that these people are Christians, but they kind of get a lot of things from the Bible. Obviously, the problem is overall and ultimately with Christianity is that we stick to Greek terminology and things like that, and we have disagreements as far as some of us believe the law should be kept, some of us don't believe that the law should be kept, and that causes a great divide. Even with Israelites, some of us don't believe that the feast days should be kept yet. Some of us are practice it and believe it's necessary. Some of us believe that it's the 10 Commandments to be kept, like the Seventh-day Adventists, and then don't believe that the law is to be kept. So with different sects comes different things that they agree with or disagree with and keep or don't keep. But the indentured servitude and the bond servant is interesting. I spoke to a guy today, and he might watch this video because he said he was going to join the page. But basically, he's going to school for banking, and it's awesome. Very intelligent brother, very awesome brother, and I basically during this exam did a slight conversation and was talking about improving Black America, and basically he's in banking and he wants to get a job with a bank afterwards and see where things goes, and we talked about him owning a bank. And I've never been a banking major, never went to school for banking, anything like that, but I have a lot more common sense on the history of how things have gone. Obviously, most people who have an understanding of how things have happened for the black man in America, we know that part of the reason why the banking industry has gone on a level that has gone is because black people have paved the way for them to get where they're at. Not only black people, but Native Americans had a part of it too. Asians had a part of it too. Irish had a part of it too. But there's people like you and me and other people who know that black people had the greatest part in that because they spent a lot of time working for free. And they worked for free and were forced to stay with their families or run from their families just so that they could have their freedom. The bond servant in the Bible is very interesting because the bond servant basically works for 6 to 7 years, and on the 7th year, if the bond servant does not wish to be with the master anymore, he's free to go. And the Bible says you're not to send him on his way empty-handed. You are to give him of your substance, meaning that the reason why you have bond servants is because you have a farm. This is what I try to get people to understand from a spiritual standpoint, but I'm going to try my best not to go too far into the spiritual because of the fact that I know a lot of people don't believe what I believe. But You have your job that pays the bills, and you work your land for what it's worth, and that creates capita. Now, you don't have an additional 40 to 80 hours to work on your land. So a lot of times, if you get off of work at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's a mad rush before it gets darker in the summertime. In the wintertime, it's pretty much the weekends. And when it snows, you're pretty much over. But, sorry, from the first time you got that warmth, from the spring, meaning that the snow melted, you got to hit that dirt. And you crack it, you split it, you put your seeds in there, you put fertilizer in there if you need to. Personally, the fertilizers that I use are vitamins and Epsom salt. I'm not down with that other stuff. I disagree with it. You put your seeds in the ground. You pull your weeds as you're going on. You learn. You have your separate pots. You pick your practice pots and you design something. Boom. Things work. You work with it next year. Doesn't work. You go past it. All right. But as time goes on, you can make money off of this, okay? So you hire somebody. The problem in the United States of America at this particular time, because people always talk about capitalism, is that now you pay a person an hourly wage instead of a salary, okay? You see, people in America try to get over on salaries, but an hourly wage is typically what you pay them. Now, what minimum wage means is that you're forced to pay people a certain amount of money now for work. Just FYI, if you are no longer below 23 or 21,000, or depending on what state you live in, if you were getting food stamps at $700, $800, $900, $7, $8 an hour, $7 to $9 an hour, 13,000 a year, I think, in North Carolina, 21 or 22,000 in another state. Guess what? I don't think that you're gonna get food stamps anymore. So you should research that. Overall, though, that system is extremely flawed because you still have to pay taxes. You still have to deal with cost of living expenses. You still have to deal with your bills going up and the hikes on companies that are giving you services because you are a importer and not an exporter. You know, picture your houses as your own villages, as your own lands, as your own kingdom. So every single thing that comes out your pocket is because you're importing, okay? You import electricity. For all you people that think that the federal government and the state level governments should control solar power and electricity, guess what? That's import, all right? Now they control that, you're screwed, all right? When you pay taxes in Connecticut for cars, oh yes, you pay taxes in Connecticut for cars. Your money is going out there to another person. You own the land, but you're not able to decide what happens to your land and what is done with your land. In some Midwest countries, states, I say countries because for a reason, by the way, but we'll try to keep it practical. Some Midwest states, I was told that people were growing food on their lands. The United States has drones that are taking pictures of your houses, and they are determining by what you're growing on your land that they're going to charge you more taxes. So yeah, this system of governance is piracy. It's actually very criminal in all its ways. I'm going to check the time on my clock to make sure that I got things going on, because I can rant all day. 10 minutes in, I got 20 minutes to get this done. But basically, people don't know history, all right? In the United States of America, men from Mexico and people, immigrants in particular, from other nations outside of the Americas came here, and they would travel from house to house to get work, to send money home to their wives and to their kids. Okay? Some people would live on the property and get food and would be paid a wage. Okay? The same thought process happened with indentured servitude. You would be paid a specific wage, or you would enslave yourself to somebody for several years until that time was off, and you would get a certain wage from them afterwards. These people bought land, they bought cattle, they bought herbs or seeds, and then they spread out. They grew their own, and they were their own exporters. They were not consumers. If they wanted something, now it wasn't about pulling out my gold. They could barter for other things to get things that they wanted. So barter and trade was a very popular thing back then. If they did put out gold and stuff like that, then they would have to understand that there was a necessity to learn how to do other things to get by. The wife would have to learn how to sew. The wife would have to learn how to sow seeds. The wife would have to definitely cook, because obviously going out to go buy food was a huge expense at those bars where all they were trying to get you to do is buy liquor, and also the opium that was out there too was going to get you addicted. So you had to be careful of that. You had to learn how to do leather work. You had to learn how to change horseshoes. All these things you had to learn how to do to keep your money up inside your home, inside your ranch, to take care of your people, your what they sort of call employees right now, but that's not the same thing at all. To take care of your children, to be able to grow your land, and to be able to amass your treasures. Okay? Now, these people did another thing. They started buying and selling things in addition to the fact that they had land. So when they went to other nations, like if they went to the United Kingdom, when they went to India, they went to Africa, they brought that stuff back and they started selling it. And they bought more land, and they bought more cattle, they bought more resources, and they grew. And then these people said, bling, I can loan money for interest. These are banks, banking systems. If you were able to be patient with me all this time, then I just touched on something very important. In order to get somewhere, you have to have assets. And these assets have to be permanent assets. These are things that not necessarily grows on their own, but nobody can take it from you. If you don't work for 5, 10, 15 years for someone else, you would still be able to make money off of what you physically have already. And it's been making money for you in addition to the money that you were already making. This gold came from the labor of other people, which they were well taken care of. And if you go back even further than that, villages would send their children to go live with other people. This is what degrees and thought processes of how you can get degrees would come before aristocracy, because the dentists and the silversmith, the dentist and the blacksmith were the smartest people in the villages. They could do practically everything. But you would send your kid to them, and they would live with them for several years, and they would have a little room to sleep, and they would have food to eat. And it would start off with these kids cleaning up poop all the time. And eventually, before this man became old in years, you were designing your own stuff. You were pulling teeth. You were cutting hair. You were writing papers up for deeds and protecting land. And the city council, you were at the head of city council because you stayed around the dentist or whoever at that point in time was the leader of that village, and you know everything. So they trust you because you were a steward for the leader of that area, which is a nation in itself, despite what was around it. They had a system of organization within themselves to get things done. Now, you fast forward today to the kingdom of heaven, to the black man. We already know that church always talks about tithe and then spends it and is back to the same place it was at the next year. I haven't even heard of a church that has zero debt, despite they want to tell you. If you truly have zero debt, that means if you have 700, 150 people in the ministry, they all were able to get their education, have their degrees, have their land. Their children are set for life, never will have to work, but will work for the sake of the understanding of what needs to be reproduced. They are able to retire to train up the future generations, not even just on a church standpoint, but a community standpoint. Technically, if you want to get really real about this stuff, if a 24-year-old person has a job and they're taking care of themselves, then they have the next 24 years, 25 years to train up their child. So at the age of 50, you should be retired, my brother. You technically should not have to work because you need to pay for stuff. Your things should already be taken care of. Your ducks should already in the world. But we as a black people don't know that. You see, and I understand that Messianics and non-Messianics is going to be watching this, and if this offends you, it is what it is. Caucasians, when they talk about their kids in the areas that I'm around, they're not saying that I'm struggling, well, most of the time. They're not saying that I'm struggling to get my kid to do certain things. They let the kids explore. If this wall is broken, they let their kid try to fix that. They let their children learn how to skydive, and if they play hooky, they give them a little talk, but years down the road, they're great businessmen, and they're scientists, and they're doctors, and they're lawyers, and they experienced life in the way that they believe. Most of them are Republican because of the fact that Republicans are loophole artists as far as taxes is concerned, and the policies benefit them, and they have great credit. Their parents had great credit at some stage or point, and it goes with the delusion or the illusion of prosperity teaching in Scripture. As you know, most of the majority of America is Christian, despite whatever polls they're putting out there to try to scare people. It's still Christian. In the meanwhile, in the black home, you're dealing with people who did not have certain parents on the scene to help, and all they know is what it's like for people to scrounge, to try to dig to get stuff that they really should have had for several years now. But with the struggle and all the children always saying, "Oh, mama, I want to make it big, I want to grow and do free," never really having the education or anybody having the wisdom to send them to a man that's stable and strong. By the way, over 70% of black men take care of their children. So guess what? At this time, it's not what it did. That's not the situation. The situation is the stability. That means that the integrity of your home, if you die today, would not go downhill. The ability to make sure that if your wife did not work, she should educate your children and strengthen their mind and to develop them to get things done. The ability for you to be able to take other people in your home that are not your own children and raise them up as your own children for the sake of the black community, for the sake of the kingdom of heaven, to train them up and where they should go so that they will never part away from it. So that even when Solomon says that a slave can surpass the children of the slave master, because the slave stayed honorable, the slave stayed humble. The slave learned everything that he needed to learn to get where he needed to get. Again, remind you, I just talked about the bond servant, and that's very essential in what I'm saying, because people, you say slavery, you're always going to hear them talk about, oh man, the transatlantic slave trade was this and the transatlantic slave trade was that. They forgot that before the transatlantic and the Barbary slave trade and the Asian slave trade, that barter, me giving my child a chance to be with somebody else, which I would never do, but if a parent did not want children, a parent cannot find it fit to take care of children, they gave them to somebody that would take care of them. That's why the laws of the Moses are designed the way that they were designed, because at that time period, children were taken by other people. They were taught how to cook. They were taught how to clean. They were taught how to fight. They were taught how to make things. You needed them to know all this stuff. It was of some value. And a true honorable person who had bondservants loved their bondservants as if they was their own blood. In America, there's some stories of bondservants that went and married the children of the man of the house. And there's stories of them getting riches from them and being able to start their own businesses. There's movies like that, for crying out loud. So you know that the ideal is not just coming from my mouth, but it's something that could be researched. When we were talking, me and this brother, I said to him that for black people to be able to get what they need to get, there's going to have to be some of us that will flip the bill. Now, W.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey's theses were that we needed to do our own thing for our people, and the Garvey's was we need to get out of here and rebuild from scratch. My thesis is it's going to take black men and black women to sacrifice to see their people make it to where they need to make it. That means that they're going to have to be paying some heavy bills to get stuff done. Now, I was raised by a female. I have my uncles and stuff like that. But for the most part, I had to read to understand a lot of things, for morality and ethics and history, to get things done. And my mom, I praise Yah, that she was good about making me sit down and read. Whether it was me sitting down and reading my Bible by myself, even though it took me from the time I was 6 years old to the time I was 21 to actually say, okay, I'm going to be real with this. To even try to get this done. But in addition to that, she would make me read 3 books a day. That's how I felt every single time I had to do that. But she allowed me to choose the books. She didn't always choose the books for me. And I had to show her that I actually knew what I was talking about. So I would always have to write her papers to give it to her so that she knew that I was reading. Of course, I tried to cheat like everybody else, but she was very diligent in making sure that me and my brothers got the best that we could to get things done. But it's going to take people like her to go out on the streets, like literally walk on the streets, not on Facebook. I'm closing down my main personal page right now because whether it be family or friends or anything right now, I'm starting to learn that people just not real. It's just entertainment for a lot of people. And it's going to take you being on the streets physically like I used to be on the streets physically in 2003, 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, till I moved to Connecticut. To be able to be in the hearts of the people, to be able to bring sandwiches to people, to be able to bring water to people, to just randomly say, hey man, if you need a prayer, you need to pray, pray. Yo, here's my number. If you need to talk to me about some junk that's going in your mind, don't go run up in nobody's head. You got me. You know what I'm saying? It's going to take a person who can be willing to give $20 here and there to somebody in need. And when they say, I'm going to pay you back, you be like, yo, nah, chill. You had that. It's all good. Just do what you got to do. Not holding debts against your people. You know what I'm saying? Investing in businesses and not getting anything out of it immediately, but knowing that that person is going to succeed because you helped them, or that there may be a greater chance that that person might succeed because you attempted to give of your substance for somebody else. That's true love. That's true scripture. That's true logic. If you're doing anything else, man, I want to know how it's working for you. I want to know how your debt's doing after doing all those things that you've done with your loans and all your borrowing, all your debts because you got all these credit cards, the school fees that you got because nobody could take out $100 and put it down for maybe 400 people and make sure that you didn't have that huge school loan after you graduated college. Made sure that they cooked you a meal once a week so that as a college student you wasn't out there eating all that solid food, eating all that pork that's killing us and everything else that we ain't got no business eating. Basically, we need to use our minds and we need to get this done right, because on the real for real, we are letting our people die for a lack of knowledge. Not necessarily, but from a lack of understanding. And I'm going to continue this in just a moment.